Okay, hello, Anna. Hello again.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Okay, so I think we can start our meeting for today. So I would like to welcome you again on our Didactic Fridays after a short break. Today we are having a special guest, Anna Matuszyńska uh, from Aachen. And today she's going to give us a short speech about hackathons as a great teaching tool in technical education. We will have some examples from Kenya from 2 years ago, as far as I remember. So, Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Technically, Anna Matuszyńska from Poland, currently residing in Germany, in Aachen. First correction is that I decided not only to focus on the technical education, but actually on the interdisciplinary education. And why is that? Because my lab focuses on the highly interdisciplinary research where we, while living through the digital transformation of biological sciences, we're already blending different methods and discipline, leveraging mathematical modeling and data-driven approaches for biological processes. And indeed, since 3 years, I'm based in RWTH Aachen in Germany. For those of you that don't know where are we, you can see this red pin that is located almost on the border of three countries, Germany, the Netherlands, and Belgium. The university has been established 154 years ago. We're a big technical university. This winter semester, we had almost 45,000 students registered, and we are ranking in a top 100 universities based on a Times Higher Education ranking. And our motto is thinking the future. And I like to always spinning it that the future is now. So the conclusions and the stories that I'm going to be telling you today have been recently summarized in the preprints that I've pasted here that have been collaboratively written with my team members, Dr. Van Aerst and Tobias Fenning, and our wonderful collaborators from the University of Embu, Dr. Marilyn Ronoch, and Professor Farai Chirove from the University in Johannesburg. So if there's any reference that you're going to be missing during my talk, you're welcome to check that preprint on a bioarchive, and everything should be noted there. So there are three topics that I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to talk about hackathons, about the education and interdisciplinarity, and I will wrap all of that by sharing our experience from the hackathons that we've organized in Kenya 2 years in a row. So let's start with a hackathon. I'm not sure if everyone that will be watching this video or connected today have already an idea of what a hackathon is. So a brief definition, it's a portmanteau of two words, hack, meaning to create a solution or to building something, and a marathon, which signifies how intense and time limited the hackathon is supposed to be. Indeed, typically it lasts between 24 and 48 hours. And it's an event that combines and offers the platform for individuals from very diverse backgrounds. They meet together to collaboratively develop innovative solutions to specific challenges, quite often to build new software or hardware. And the very first hackathon, or the information about the first hackathon, comes from 1999, where an OpenBSD project organized a hackathon with 10 participants, where they collaboratively developed cryptographic software. And currently, the OpenBSD are continuing the tradition of hackathons, typically organizing 3 to 6 hackathons every year. And if you might think you don't know what an OpenBSD is, every Apple user is using something that they've developed. The OpenBSD is a security-focused free software that, for example, the firewall code in Apple's macOS is based on their firewall code. So yes, IT technology. This is let's say the origin of the hackathons, but the concept of hackathons, of organizing a fast-paced event that lasts up to 2 days, that combines an expertise from different disciplines in order to solve a problem, went far beyond tech. And my very first experience of joining a hackathon is memorized with this picture. If there are any particle physicists on board, you should recognize the CERN globe, idea globe in the back. I had a pleasure to participate in a humanitarian hackathon organized by the port in CERN Idea Square in Geneva in Switzerland. The purpose was to solve humanitarian challenges through innovations. And this is my lovely team of people. I'm very fortunate to still stay in touch with some of them. We've joined Geneva with the hope to solve the challenge that have been assigned to us based on our expertise. And on board, we had a mathematician, myself, we had economists, linguists, neuroscientists, doctors, and business people. And all together, we've been working together hand in hand. So the hackathons, those humanitarian hackathons in CERN, have a common structure. They last 6 weeks. First, as a virtual preparation, then there is this intensive 3-day in-person hackathon, and you can see pictures from that event. We're supported by numerous experts and sponsors that are there to support our work, and they conclude with a final pitch at the Globe of Science. So the outcome can be a ready-to-go prototype. It can be code, it can be documents, it can be hardware. And that was the very first time that I've experienced how powerful such an intensive exchange is in terms of all of my future ideas. I admit till today I'm using a lot of inspirations from that event. Another prominent example of how hackathons have been used successfully comes from Germany, from the unfortunate time of the global pandemic. The German government organized in March 2020 a hackathon as a response to the pandemic outbreak. And within 2 days, more than 28,000 registered participants worked together to solve more than 1,500 solutions, problems to the pandemic-related challenges. So if you were not familiar with the concept of hackathons, but heard another word like a datathon or a makeathon or an ideathon, I wanted to highlight that they all work around similar concepts, and there are nuances or the focus points, how they differ. The datathon would probably focus more on the challenges that are data-centric. The hackathons will be more focused on building software and hardware, but we're using them interchangeably. And this is just a summary of some of the events that you might have come across, or now after this talk will be actively looking to participate with. So what are hackathons? I hope we know now. And during this presentation, I want to tell you that hackathons are the solution for our educational challenge. So what's the problem? And I've decided to talk about the problem from the perspective of me as a teacher in higher education. I think that everyone here, if you're involved in teaching, you have your own vision of what are the most important aspects of your work or what is your mission. But we will all agree that it's a very complex and multifaceted role, and the responsibilities are numerous. First of all, we are facilitating self-directed learning because we have a limited contact time with our students, yet we are supposed to create an environment where our students are encouraged to independently think or to research and explore beyond the classroom, beyond whatever we present to them in this limited time. Then we're also responsible for promoting critical thinking and problem solving. And we should put emphasis on fostering this intellectual independence, not only following the protocol and the rules and point table provided by the trainer. We are supposed to deliver advanced knowledge on different topics. Part that I particularly enjoy. We're also mentors and supporters. Our role includes supporting not only on a professional level, but also enabling the personal growth of our students. We have responsibility in designing and assessing learning experiences, engaging in research, providing that most of people that are working in academia are also active researchers. This research keeps our teaching content dynamic and relevant and timely. And foremost, I think that our role is to develop skilled experts and professionals for society, which brings me to the question, what are the most wanted skills of the next decade? What am I supposed to teach and transfer to my students? And I would say we are in a quite challenging time because there's a lot of reports here. I present the data from World Economic Forum that was published last year. The global employment will change tremendously by 2030. Those are predictions that by this time there will be 170 million new jobs created, and 92 will be destroyed and displaced, meaning that there will be jobs that don't exist right now, and we need to think really hard what kind of skills will be needed in order to take those roles. And here, once again, the World Economic Forum helps out with predictions of what might be the most useful skills and what are the fastest growing jobs by 2030. The big data specialists are placed in a first place. I also wanted to highlight that on the 11th position, the World Economic Forum predicts that the fastest growing job by 2030 are data analysts and scientists. And when it comes to the core skills this year, analytical thinking, resilience, leadership, creative thinking, motivation, and self-awareness are the top 5 skills that are being searched by employers and that we should transfer to our students. So I would imagine that you expect from me now to convince you that hackathons can address those skills. And that's exactly what I plan to do right now. By requiring participants to quickly analyze problems, the hackathons sharpen their skills and therefore provide a hands-on relevant problem where they can test and practice their analytical thinking. Because of this time, because it's so fast-paced and it's short in time, it also allows to be exposed to the highly demanding environment where students can work on their resilience and their flexibility. And because this is a highly mixed group of people that can join such an event, it also helps to work on the agility. Every group requires leadership, and every group requires social communication. Therefore, team-based hackathons provide opportunities to test those skills too. Creative thinking is I would say, given for free, a skill that comes with such a format, because the hackathons encourage participants to think outside of the box. The format itself is a quite out-of-the-box format for providing solutions to problems. Most of the people that are joining hackathons at the moment are highly motivated and completing a project within a limited time, where you understand what is the challenge and that you have limited resources and time, and you need to understand what is your contribution in the team, increases the self-awareness of your value. You don't have to have the same skills as your partner sitting on the left or on the right side, but you are coming with a unique set of expertise, knowledge, perspective that can be helpful for the team. And it's a magnificent tool for building also self-esteem of our students. Technological literacy. We are here located at a technical university, and our students are technologically advanced, but they are not a representative of a general population. So hackathons, if merged also with students or citizens that are not of a technical background, allow to provide a hands-on experience with the new technological tools. We don't talk, in my opinion, enough about the social aspects of different educational formats. Hackathons are also helping to acquire the empathy and active listening skills, because we to work in such a short period of time on real problem, to work effectively, you need to listen actively to what your partners and team members are talking about. You need to appreciate different perspectives, and it promotes also empathy. Curiosity and lifelong learning. Hackathons often expose participants to the concept that they were not taught at school during their formal education. They learn how to transfer some of the concept in between the disciplines, or transfer solutions from one problem to another problem in a completely different field. And you need to have a certain level of curiosity to be interested in how now a mathematician as myself will be trying to look for the solutions in the environmental conservation problems, which I will be talking actually in a few seconds about. Hackathons are also a platform to test and expand the talent management skills. From my experience, you can see in every team that there are some individuals that are demonstrating their capabilities to be certain leader or the front man in the work, and through the roles that are being taken during such a very fast-paced event, we can recognize what are the talents or the hidden talents of our members. Finally, some hackathons, as the ones that I have just mentioned, the humanitarian hackathon in CERN, as well as the pandemic-related hackathon in Germany, can be focused on developing solutions to real-world problems and the community needs. And that encourages students and participants to actively search how their knowledge can provide valuable service to the society. So I've decided not to talk about only technology but interdisciplinarity. And just so we are on the same page, what I mean by the interdisciplinarity, here's a short definition. Interdisciplinarity refers to the integration and collaboration of multiple disciplines. So anytime there is a problem that cannot be adequately solved by a single discipline, and we require a combined expertise from different areas, we're dealing with an interdisciplinary question, interdisciplinary problem. And the approach can involve the exchange or combination of not only knowledge, but also methods and perspectives. And I would claim that today, we rarely have problems that can be addressed with not interdisciplinary team. As I've mentioned at the beginning, I have a pleasure to lead the computational life science lab located in a biology department at the Technical University. And our expertise lies in the life science area. And in the rate at which life science progresses today is not limited by the amount of data that is available, but our ability to process it. And for this ability to process it, we require expertise, methods, and perspectives from different disciplines. So to convince you that indeed we have a lot of data, it is estimated that every day there's more than 400 million terabytes of data generated globally. And it has been discussed that we humans have really big problems in interpreting big numbers. We're quite good with smaller numbers, but the moment we go into millions, billions, trillions, it's hard to estimate how big they are. So together with my collaborators, we came up with this similarity that you can imagine that you give an iPhone or any other smartphone that has more than 100 gigabytes of data, fully packed with text messages and images, and give it to every third person on the globe every day. That's how much data we're producing every day. So as now a mathematician working for biologists, we started to appreciate the evidence that hackathons can be used to address interdisciplinary problems. We realized that there's a lot of experimental data and a lot of biological questions that we would like to address. And we started to experiment with that format. And now I would like to share with you our experience and give some of the suggestions of how can you start to maybe organize or build in a hackathon into your teaching format. So 2 case studies. The turtle will follow us for a while, because the very first case study was performed in summer 2022 in Kenya as a part of a summer school in computational biology for sustainable environment. We got a very generous fund from Volkswagen Foundation and offered a 2 weeks intensive teaching course for students coming from sub-Saharan African countries, from Ghana, Nigeria, Uganda, and Kenya. We had quite promising representation of female students and quite spread educational level, meaning we did not only work with doctoral students or postdocs, but actually more than 60% of our students were on the master level. And we took them to Watamu, which is the beautiful area on the coast of Kenya, where turtles find their nesting area, and a lot of turtle data is available thanks to the amazing work of the local non-governmental organizations. So what we decided to do, and what was the aim of the school, was to take people that are not technology oriented but problem oriented. So environmental scientists, biologists, marine scientists, agricultural scientists. We had even some political students, and teach them the basics of data analysis, basics of coding, basics of statistics, to allow them to use those methods into their domains. And we've built a very packed program, as you can see from the schedule, where we were introducing our students to Python programming language. We were introducing them to the key packages that are widely used as data analysts. We talked about mathematical modeling and how we can use the information about the data to make future predictions. And we started to think, how do we want to test students' knowledge? How do we want to wrap up this summer school that the students will have the feeling of accomplishment that they actually have learned something meaningful? And already quite invested in project-based learning, which is an approach where the teachers actively try to provide real-world projects where students can work on a practical challenge actively and not only passively listening to some lectures, as you do right now. I'm giving now a perfect example of a passive lecture. We wanted to offer something that's going to be project-based, that will reflect their process of learning, that will allow them to implement all of those methods that they've just listened to and learned. And we decided that hackathon is actually a great example of project-based learning, and decided that in the second week of summer school, we're going to block 2 days for a hackathon with real biological data. And we've been very fortunate, thanks to our local collaborators, Mawazo Institute and Marilyn Ronoch, that I've mentioned already, that they've connected us with the local ocean conservation group that have been working with the conservation, had worked on conservation in that area for 30 years, and they had a lot of data to be shared with us. So without going into details about what the hackathon was about, I just want to mention that the local ocean conservation have been doing an amazing work on collecting information about turtles that have been catched by fishermen. They had the Turtle Rehabilitation Center where they monitored how sick or injured the turtles were when they were being collected. And they have treated more than 650 patients over the time that they've operated. And they've been collecting the reasons for this admission, identifying also diseases such as fibropapillomatosis, which I'm not a medical person, but I would refer to something like a turtle cancer. So we divided our students into several groups, gave them the data about the turtles, and suggested that they try to implement whatever tools they were introduced to and do something meaningful with that. So we had a group of people that were interested in investigating the location of where the turtles are being found. They had a working hypothesis that maybe there is a higher, that there is some environmental impact that affects where some turtles are being collected. They started to look at the maps where the fishermen are going, and basically they were our location people. We had people that got more interested in the physiology to try to understand what kind of turtles are visiting that area, and they wanted to connect it with some environmental studies. We had people that really focused on the toxicity of the ocean and what are the reasons for admission, focusing on this medical aspects and the effects of the water pollution. And we also had people that tried to use simple statistical models and linear regressions to find trends, and I also try to build more advanced dynamical models to find out whether they can make predictions where some of the turtles will be located. All amazing, and we were so happy to see that group of people for most of them, Python was a word that they've learned about, but never coded themselves. They could prepare such a visualizations themselves. But we told our students that you can find something that is statistically significant, but if it's society irrelevant, if it's not explained, it will be not relevant for the society. And similarly to the concept that I was introduced to in CERN, we wanted to finish our whole summer school and the hackathon with an outreach event where the conclusions of the hackathon can be presented to the local community. And again, thanks to our collaborators, it has been arranged that we've been invited by a group of fishermen and their wives to present the results of our work. And as you can see, this is not a classroom at the university. There is no PowerPoint, there are no speakers, and we needed to convince this community that we've done something useful and meaningful with the data that have been collected thanks to their work, because it was always the fishermen that have been calling the local ocean conservation to say that they found some turtle. And we've managed to convince them that the more turtles we find that are sick, the more of an indicator it is that the ocean is not in a good condition and good state. So they wanted to listen to us. With no slides, no jargon, and no statistics, we've managed to have a very nice exchange with our community. And hackathons and also presentation are teaching us that there are some aspects that you can't really predict easily, and you need to be very versatile and flexible and use whatever resources you have. For instance, just a few hours before the presentation, we've learned that most of these community members speak only Swahili. And we had in the group only 3 Swahili speakers. So suddenly our presenters were not necessarily the best presenters we had. They were the only 3 presenters that could speak Swahili. To be fair, they were also coincidentally amazing speakers, so we were just lucky. But you can see what I mean, that with sometimes the resource that we have is limited and you have to go with it. So what we've learned about jargon, or the fact that we cannot use it, overlaps very nicely with the quote of Richard Feynman. I think that anyone that is interested in a high quality education came across his philosophy and his approaches and his amazing physics lectures. Feynman said that when we speak without jargon, it frees us from hiding behind knowledge we don't have. And I fully support it. Every time I use some keyword or buzzword without explaining the concept, it's just a business speaking, and it does not carry a message. It does not allow me to really pass the knowledge that I have to the others. So based on that experience that we had, we've been invited 1 year later by one of our participants to give a similar training to her students, inspired by the format and realizing how powerful hackathons can be as this intensive educational tool that allows us to test whether we've learned something and do it in a meaningful way that maybe we can use it for the good in a community. She applied for the one of the projects funded by the UNESCO and got funding to organize a hackathon in at her university. And as the funding was offered for a week, we decided to experiment now with a week format. So we have just 3 days, let's say, for the teaching and transfer of knowledge, and then maybe one day plus for the hackathon. So we once again had the pleasure to work with the students from Sub-Saharan Africa. Once again, we managed to have a proper representation of female participants and had quite diverse educational level. I love to show this picture because it's the probably first and only time I had my own banner hanging in front of the university. And here you can see my amazing team of trainers that were organizing the content for the second time in a year. We prepared the teaching content, this time not mostly for the environmental scientists and biologists, but for mathematicians and informaticians that don't understand the biology and medicine. And we organized at the end of that a hackathon workshop on computational modeling, changing the program, as you can see, to include only 1 day of a hackathon. This shortening of the format did not impact negatively the evaluation of our students. You can see here the results of the evaluation that we've done a few months after the completion of the course. And what is quite amazing, 100% of the participants felt engaged by the hackathon, would recommend both organizing as well as joining a hackathon, intended to use their new skills, wanted to share their new skills, not to be taken for granted. It's a completely different thing to learn something and want to use it, and learn something and want to teach it further. Felt supported during the hackathon and were interested during the time. And we had some participants that already had previous hackathon experience. These people considered that the most important topics for them were programming, modeling, and practical application. For people that did not had hackathon experience before, it was also the programming and modeling that were the most important skills and topics that they focused on. So based on this experience, we thought that a hackathon, it can be already a scalable format. It doesn't matter whether in the case study 1, we've spent 25 hours on it, or in the case study 2, we've spent 14 hours. It didn't matter that much whether we had before that a week and a half of intensive teaching, which you can convert more or less to the equivalent of a semester of teaching, or whether we had just 3 days. There, we identified that there are 5 components that were kept in both of the formats, and we believe they're a good recommendation to follow when you want to organize a hackathon. And those components are, first of all, the introduction, to provide a proper introduction. The participants need to identify the key features of their data. They need to be introduced to the problem, to the content, and the goal of the hackathon needs to be very clearly set. Then there needs to be enough time for the individual work, obviously, brainstorming, analysis, division of the labor, finding the positions in a group. But extremely important, there have to be a lot of checkup sessions. So there has to be a lot of mentors that can support the group. There have to be instructors that are well trained in communication that can help groups not to deviate too far and to solve particular problems during the work. But you can't stop only with that. We also implemented plenary sessions, which allowed to exchange the information between the groups during the hackathon. So if there were 2 groups that were working on a similar idea or a similar concept, they had an opportunity to learn about it through the time to maybe pivot or maybe collaborate, and not to learn at the end of the event that actually they've done the same thing as their colleagues. And maybe, unfortunately, they've done it worse. And finally, the last 5th component, presentation. Allow to provide a space for the participants to synthesize their analysis to some narrative, to present their story, to deliver the presentation, to create something that they can present to the broader public. And who's going to be the audience of that presentation? That, of course, will depend on the question, on the problem, on the format, but let it never be just the group of people that participated in the hackathon itself. Aside of that, we came up also with a fun graphic that when you design a hackathon, there is a step that sometimes is being omitted, which is the selective process. It's very important that when a hackathon is being constructed, if you want to implement it at the end of the teaching module and you have already your students, well, you can't pre-select them again, right? But if you want to offer some additional credits and additional format, let students apply for that. Let them know that they need to be selected and need to already think, what do they bring to the table? What are the skills that they come with? So that the self-awareness is being built, and it allows to really structure highly diverse groups. Clear goal, mentoring, checkup, and dissemination. Everything has been mentioned already by me in the previous slide. So if you would like to build now, create a hackathon or build it into the program, there are 3 additional recommendations that we came up with my colleagues. And I think the closest to my heart, and why I love that format, and why I'm so grateful to the Volkswagen Foundation for giving me enough money to do it that way, is to keep trainer to participant ratio. So quite often we are teaching our students concepts that require checkup, but we don't have enough of the trainers in a room to go around and check if they're implemented it correctly. And by maintaining a ratio of approximately 1 trainer per 10 participants, and always having at least 2 trainers in the room at all times, we've managed to create this environment where our students felt supported, had enough of the contact time with people with more experience to not be under continuous stress that they don't know something. And they were quite keen on discussing with us all of their problems and raising them rather earlier than later. The second recommendation is this progress monitoring that I have mentioned before, the frequent checkpoints. not only intra-group, but also inter-groups, so they know what they're working on and they can provide still a meaningful contribution or feedback to each other. And peer support. In every group, we're going to find people that are working, that are learning with different pace. And those faster learners can be so beautifully used during the hackathons because they can transition into mentoring role right away. They're going to be then training completely different skill set, but this fosters the teamwork and collaborative learning. There's no one left bored in a classroom. They just change and transition their role. So yes, I was talking about the experience from external funding in sub-Saharan Africa, but how do we transfer now this into our classroom? This is an ongoing project since 2 weeks, so I cannot show you the results, but I will walk you through our process. Last year, together with Dr. Axel Timpe from architecture and my colleagues from the faculty 1 from mathematics, computer science, and natural sciences, we've applied internally to RWTH Aachen to fund an interdisciplinary cross-faculty teaching module for master students on photosynthetic systems in architecture to leverage computational biology for sustainable design. And we got the funding, meaning that we are currently here in this orange phase, where we started a new teaching module with 15 students, both from architecture and biology and biotechnology, working together to design a vertical garden that it will be well designed, meaningfully plant with meaningfully selected green plants and proper sensors that will collect enough of the information to have a living lab, and maybe ideally an automated system of monitoring the health status of the plants. And for that, we designed a special time in a semester where our students that are participants of that course can voluntarily join us, and in a format of a hackathon in 3 days, try to build up the sensors that they require and design those gardens based on everything that we teach them during the semester. So next week, I'm going to be talking about the photosynthesis as a process that can be used for the monitoring of the greenery that will be used. Yes, and with that, I think I'm perfectly on time. I promised to talk for 45 minutes. I do believe, based on my experience as the participants and now organizers, that hackathons empower learners. They really allow us to not only build, but test the real world skills. They provide the platform where we can bridge the different disciplines. They foster inclusive innovation. They are an example of this concept that we preach in education of authentic learning and active learning. And I believe they are scalable. So there is no one format in which they have to be conceptualized. As you've seen, we've tried a 2-week course with a 2-day hackathon, 1-week course with a 1-day hackathon, and now we're using a semester module with 3 days intensive activities. And there are a lot of examples in the literature of other successful implementations, mostly in technology. They're all linked in my publication. So if you're interested, and there will be some questions that I'm not capable of answering right directly, please search literature. There is a lot of body of evidence. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention. As always, I thank my amazing team of interdisciplinary researchers. And I finish with simple go and hack.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Anna. If anyone has any questions, just feel free to ask those. If someone don't want to or cannot turn on the microphones, you can type your questions on the chat. I will read them out loud. You already answered some of my questions that I noted during your speech, but I still have one. regarding this passive lecture, which in my opinion is quite needed. You mentioned that this is one of the crucial parts of that, and you also said that we want our student to think outside of the box. And while this particular element, this introduction, is very needed, since if you want them to think outside of the box, we have to be sure that they know what is in the box, which is very important. Okay, so regarding those hackathons, is it always like that they are having those before hackathons virtual meetings and work, or is it or it depends? Because I can see some similarities between hackathons and just regular project-based learning.
It's a good question. I don't think it's a rule that 100% of them always have the preliminary phase. It has been definitely recognized that it's a helpful phase to put everyone on the same page. To, as you named it nicely, you need to know what's the box. Where are the borders, so you know where to go outside. And what I struggle with is the language, common language. If you work on an interdisciplinary concepts, you work with experts that are used to their jargon, and sometimes they don't understand each other because they use basically different nomenclature, different vocabulary. And providing some preliminary materials allow you to get acquainted with that. And this is just as simple as that. How does this differ from the project-based learning? Of course, there's a lot of overlap in the concept. As I also mentioned, to us, hackathons for education are an example of project-based learning approach that put emphasis on the innovation, solution for the real problem, and collaboration, which are not always the necessary components of a project-based learning.
Okay, I also saw that the time difference is also quite important, because in case of project-based learning, it doesn't matter if it's whole semester, is it a week or something like that. And in this particular case, I can feel that the short time frame is quite important. Is that so?
Yes. The fast pace. Although last year I have been invited as a mentor to a global datathon that was being organized online, and students were also working through semester on their challenges, and the word datathon has been also used for that. As with every trend, we will be seeing that some of the concepts are being used in different ways, sometimes outside of the box that has been structured and meant. For me, hackathons, datathons are the intensive, fast-paced, short events. This is a very important aspect.
Okay, I can see that the box is our keyword for today. So I have
because I liked it.
yeah, that's true. That's great. I have one more box with some mystery inside. You mentioned about one event that there were 28,000 participants and they were working on 1,500 problems. Does it mean that the groups in case of hackathons might be very big? Because in this particular case, if you do the math, the simple math here, it's like more than 25 people per one problem. Is it not difficult to work on one complicated problem within such a big group? Because 25 people, it's a lot.
That was not all people working on one problem. That was a response of the government for the fact that at the time that the pandemic hit, there were a lot of problems of even trying to find the empty beds in ICU. And there were a lot of not compatible systems across the hospitals that could not exchange data. So there were a lot of small problems that could have been addressed by talented and committed programmers, but not only programmers, and they were targeting problems, sometimes in much smaller groups, sometimes individually. I wanted to find the statistic, but didn't manage to exactly find how many people have been working collaboratively to close each of these 1,500 problems.
Okay, but if there were 28,000 participants and we had 1,500 problems, it's around 28, I think, 27 people per one problem. That's a big group. And as far as I know, regular groups for project-based learning, for example, which are not killing each other while working, the optimum is like 7 up to 10, maybe 11. Isn't it too big in case of 20 some people groups?
I wouldn't like to mix two approaches. That example was the governmental response to actual problems, and who volunteered for most were high professionals.
Okay.
People that work collaboratively through different projects are well trained in collaborative coding. They all know how the version control work and could code together. And in that aspect, 20 people on the project is not too many. In the context of education, yes, as I said, also one trainer per 10 students is the minimum. The groups would be also smaller. It's true, I didn't mention it. Our groups were around 5 or 6 people working on the challenge during the hackathons.
Okay, thank you. Actually, that was my question. So you would recommend that like 5, 6, up to 10 people would be okay.
Yes, I can't name the study, but there's beautiful studies that are showing how the division of work changes when there is additional member added to the group, and how if the group is too big, there's always someone that is almost like a free rider, never doing anything. And if I'm not mistaken, that number of a perfect group is 4.
Okay. You also mentioned on one slide that this beginning phase when you can take the best student and let's say search for those talents and those motivated ones would be the perfect idea. Nevertheless, if you are a teacher, you probably have a group that is just studying. They are not chosen like that. This is a difficulty in this particular case. So, do you maybe have any advices how to handle such issues regarding free riders?
I think that I personally I'm so much more devoted if I have a sense of where the work goes. So even if I don't have an impact of the amount of skills that my students are coming with, I think it's my responsibility, my job, and my pleasure to try to motivate them and inspire them, so they believe that they work into something that is meaningful. And once they have a mission and they have the sense of this meaning, then we work on trying to find out what is your unique contribution, because we can be working. Beautiful example outside of the hackathon, we hosted in the lab an economist for 5 months, an economist in a technical university in a biological department, who was working with us on what kind of mistakes are we doing when we borrow concepts from economy. And yet, if we would tell her that you're not a fit to us because you're not a mathematician, you cannot program, and you don't know biology, we would not take benefit of the talents that she has. So it's also to try to find out what kind of unique talents and skills and expertise the person comes with, because I believe everyone comes with something.
Okay, yeah, that's true. And you mentioned something which is quite important, in my opinion. You are doing the thing that every good teacher should do. You are giving your students the environment where they can understand how important that particular task might be. And that's how motivation is rising, I would say. Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. As a matter of fact, most of my questions are depleted because, as I mentioned, you already answered some of those during your speech, but maybe someone from the audience would like to ask some questions. I'm reminding that if anyone would like to write them on a chat, you can also do so. Okay, we are having Krzysztof. Krzysztof, would you like to ask it? Probably you turned off the mic. Oh yeah. Hi, hello, hi, Krzysztof.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation and very inspiring. However, I have two questions regarding the hackathons, and probably in this particular case, because some of the questions have already been answered, before a while. So our questions with Bartłomiej were overlapping. So thank you very much for giving them. But I have two questions regarding the first one refers to how can you nominate. Oh, that's a very good question. Whether you must or you can or you might nominate someone who will be a leader in the group, who will be the just an analytician or just who will be coding or whatever, because I can imagine that, for example, when you have a group consisting of 4 or 5 people, not mentioning about 11 or 20, 25. Yeah, that's really challenging. But someone must take the lead. Someone must, be a visionary. Someone must be just, the task manager, etc. Yeah. So the question is whether you nominate as a teacher these particular people, or not, because for example, referring to our the Didactic Friday from 2-3 weeks ago, about this way of thinking, right? So we had a typology of the way of thinking. And some people can be leaders, some people can be visionaries, some people can be, there are different personalities and ways of thinking. And in my opinion, it's very challenging, or maybe very difficult even to nominate these people, and to give it for granted that you must be the leader. And this person is not just, from the way of thinking, right? And then the whole project goes wrong because it's not a reward for him, it's just a punishment, right? So I think you mean what I'm thinking about. And the second question, maybe I give those two questions and then I will stop, right? So don't worry. And the second question goes to the evaluation, the way of evaluation, because, for example, I can imagine that you've got these groups, and these groups are competing in a kind of sense with each other because they have a task to do. And then, for example, most of the systems, they evaluate people in terms of doing this as fast as possible, or I don't know, reaching a goal. You must have this evaluation criteria, and it refers also to these groups. So how it corresponds with, how does it correspond with each other? So if you could could comment on it, then yeah.
Really
Thank
good
you very much.
questions.
Thank you.
I will start with the first one because I believe the first one is easier for me than evaluations. And when it comes to this finding the position in a team, in ideal world, the participants should find their own position. As you've mentioned, not struggle in the future that they're trying to fulfill something that has been assigned to them. I also try to empower my students that they are actively searching for the roles that they find themselves good at. But we're not in the ideal world, and sometimes we work with people that are very young, or it's their first timers and they need more structure. So what I would suggest is that first of all, the team decides what kind of roles they want to take based on their interest, skills, confidence. They can raise their hand or they can nominate. But to do it, they start with the round a quick round where they ask, what are you good at? Or what are you excited at? And then everyone can talk really about who they are, what they're passionate about, what are their skills. They present themselves. And after that, they allocate their work. And here I do support the groups by providing, again, Bartek, the box, the frames, what kind of roles are needed. Because if you are new, you might not realize necessarily that you require someone on the team that will be taking minutes, that there is a need for that person that will be taking notes, because someone will throw amazing idea, but in the middle of a wrong conversation, and someone needs to write it down and bring it back when the time is correct. And there are other roles. There need to be a storyteller that will sum up at the end. There has to be a team lead. That natural leaders are easy to identify. They identify themselves very easily. The problem is with people that are super quiet and they don't say right away what is their magic. And that's why it's so important that there are mentors around, that they're circulating and they observe the dynamic of the group, where they notice that, for example, the self-appointed leader is not a leader, it's a bully. And they require someone external that will try to balance out the conversation in a group and try to navigate that. Maybe they need to search something for another topic, or maybe question whether they feel comfortable in the allocated rooms. So in a short summary answer, I believe in a self-organized structures where the students are provided with a frame of what kind of roles they need to take and time to discuss what are their strengths, so they have a capacity to select those roles in an educated way. Is that okay for the first answer?
Yes, fully okay. But the second question, what about the evaluation of these projects? Okay.
That's the tricky question. That's why I stopped, because I see at least one of my students that is listening to what I'm talking about, and he knows I am not a big fan of grading and evaluations, because I always remind it's my subjective opinion of what I think you've learned. Not always is that a reflection of what you really worked on and what is your commitment. So I do try to make it transparent, well thought, fair, but still at the end, it's my personal opinion. So when it comes to the hackathons, first of all, I think that the evaluation should go beyond, did the project work? Because if it didn't work, it doesn't mean that it's a fail. And hackathon is also focusing on a skill development and learning outcomes. So there has to be a very well balanced assessment. In both cases before, we didn't have to evaluate our students because they didn't have the grades. It's going to be now during the semester that we will be evaluating our students of the photosynthetic systems in architecture. And we have mentioned to them that there will be aspects that they will be evaluated individually and as a group. So they already knew that there are some aspects where they're all for one for all, and other where they need to work on individual contribution. And yes, there's I would say that there are different layers of what has to be evaluated, starting from whether the problem has been understood, whether the path for the solution was correct, some level of creativity, how well was it executed, and the communication, the final pitch or the summary. I can throw it as a discussion. Would be more happy to listen to what you're saying than what is my opinion. There are approaches where students are encouraged to self-evaluate themselves. I love that idea because I have no problems with saying what I liked and what I didn't, and I would evaluate badly myself and my best friend, which she would not be happy about it, but it's just an evaluation. But from my experience, it doesn't work. And the students do not find self-evaluation as a meaningful method, because to me that would be the best way of judging how the group worked together. What was the contribution of each of the individual? I don't know what kind of experience you have with that.
Good. Thank you very much.
So you also asked about what were our experience regarding self-evaluation. I tried self-evaluation and I think it worked, but only in the case when we are evaluating ourselves. I mean, they are struggling if they are trying to evaluate something between each other. If they are writing a test or something like that, and afterward I am saying that those and those things were wrong, and now try to evaluate yourself, try to propose what mark would you give yourself, and that works, but only if they are talking only about themselves. So I have quite similar experiences as you did. So if they are evaluating each other, it's a mess. It's a mess.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. Okay.
May I add something? You know,
yeah, of course.
I have very similar experiences with self-evaluations of students regarding field exercises. It's very similar to a project because they have to do certain type of tasks. You know, they must perform, and they have also a leader. They have also it's a normal group. It's very similar to the hackathon maybe, but they must do practical things outside. And it was working, you know. I've been doing that for many years, and it's really, even if it's not about themselves, also if it's you know, connected with evaluating the colleagues, you know, it also it's more or less okay. And it's not always the rule that they give themselves very good mark, right? So it's the scoring is always diverse, and from my experience, sometimes it happens that they try to be how should I say, over justify. Yeah, so they want to give simply, you know, very good to everyone, but it happens very seldom. Normally they give very different marks, and yeah, and it also works, right? My biggest concern is, what about conflicts in a group? Because it happens that people don't like each other, for example, and it has nothing to do sometimes with the practical or theoretical things, rather with personalities, two strong personalities, for example, and they don't like each other. They fight with each other, for example, and it breaks totally the whole group down. You know, it brings it down. It's like that. Yeah, maybe you have some experiences, because that's, I think it's very important part of our job. Yeah.
I love the question, because it jumps back to my beginning, the skills that we require. Conflict resolution is also one of the top of the skills that are required, because there is more of the understanding that we require more interdisciplinary teams to really address the more complex problems. With every interdisciplinary team, we come with different perspectives, with different beliefs, with different biases. And of course, there's going to be tension. And it's a skill to be trained. And hackathons, as you said, yes, there will be this tension. We should expect that some group might not work perfectly from the beginning, or there can be collapse. But this is a controlled environment that we can create at the university that can offer at least the platform for them to try to practice how to behave. And again, very important role of the mentor. Mentor at the beginning observes the growth of the dynamics. Observes, does not interfere, because otherwise the students don't have the possibility of solving it themselves. But at the time when there is always this growing tension before the peak, before someone does something that we would classify as unexpected, not professional and not to be tolerated. Before that, the mentor has to interfere and has to say that what is happening right now is not beneficial for the group. We need to take a pause. We need to relax. And for that, the trainers also need to be trained in the conflict resolution, empathy, and project management, which I think to a certain extent, most of the academic teachers are at certain point. But this is to be expected. And I love it for that, because we cannot have students that are finishing university thinking that everything is being prepared and predicted, and then they go to their first work and they will be working with someone that they cannot tolerate. They have to have already the skills how to navigate their professional life, and yes, there are skills for that. How to act, what to talk about, what not to talk about.
Thank you very much.
Simply said, a social skill set. So those hackathons and probably project-based learning also are focused on developing or exploring those skills.
I don't know if you had enough time to look at those core skills in 2025. Resilience, flexibility, and agility, leadership and social influence, creative thinking, motivation, and self-awareness. None of them are those hardcore skills that we've been talking about. They're all in the social skills area.
Why there were no coding? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, technological literacy is the sixth one, right? So
just a joke, yes, of course. Yeah, but I also can feel that those social skills are getting more and more important these days. And I cannot see any additional questions, and the time is slowly ticking. And I know that there is a quite nice weather outside. But if any one of you would like to have any additional questions, just please raise your hand or type them on the chat. But if there are none, I would like to thank again our special guest, Anna. Thank you again. Thank you again for your lecture.
Thank you for having me.
That was pleasure. The pleasure was ours. And I hope we will meet again soon.
Hope so too.
Okay, so thank you and see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Very interesting presentation. Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you. We are trying our best.